Hey everybody, welcome to Greenhouse 2. This was the scene of last week's furnace debacle. Fortunately, we got that fixed and we wasted no time in getting this place filled up with new plants. And if you look around, pretty much all the bench space is taken up, although you may notice that there are gaps between some of the trays with plants. Now that's intentional because these plants are going to be growing, and some of them growing a whole lot before we open in May. So we need to leave room for us to be able to space those out, because if we don't do that, the plants will start growing together. And when that happens, two things can really go wrong. One is that the plants can get moldy because there's not enough air circulation, so we need to make sure that there's airflow between them, and we do that through spacing and through fans and any other means to get air around them. And then also, if they're growing too close together, they start depending on each other for support, and what ends up happening is if you take one out of the middle, it doesn't have a strong enough stem to be able to hold itself up, and it gets floppy and they're really weak, and we don't want that. Nobody wants a floppy, weak plant. So that's the reason why we have the spacing, and we're trying to be ahead of the game with those. Same thing with all our hanging baskets. Right now they're really close together, but eventually we'll be spreading those out as well, because a lot of those hanging baskets are moving into Greenhouse 5. And Greenhouse 5 has kind of a special use, and that's because that's the greenhouse that we keep at a lower temperature. And by keeping it at a lower temperature, we can put plants like petunias, calibrachoas, geraniums in there, and we can keep the temperature nice and low, and that serves as a natural kind of growth regulator. So they grow a lot slower in lower temperatures. So we try to keep the temperatures between 40 and 60 in there, and that will reduce the amount of time we have to spend trimming them. It also encourages them to be kind of fuller and more dense, and it's just kind of a better way to go rather than using like chemical growth regulators or anything like that. So Greenhouse 5 has a special purpose. Unfortunately, Greenhouse 5 is not ready for action because guess what? We had another furnace incident. Let me take you over there and tell you all about it. This is greenhouse number 5, and normally this would be filled with annuals. These perennials would be in greenhouse 7, but the furnace in greenhouse 7 needs a new valve, so been delayed with that. So we decided to temporarily use greenhouse 5 for perennials. Kind of means that we're going to have to move them all later on this week, but we're making do with what we have. Everything that you see here are the plants that we're going to have to plant up this week. And one thing about the perennials is that we do need to keep these a little bit cooler. So that's the reason why we even keep the door open, because I did get an alert earlier today that this greenhouse reached 90 degrees, which is way too warm for some of these perennials, and we definitely don't want that. And that warm weather is encouraging some plants to bloom. This is a Bergenia called Fairy Tale Romance. Beautiful pink flower. It's a early season bloomer, and it's a semi-evergreen. So these waxy leaves kind of stick around, and it does have really nice foliage. So once the flowers are done, still has a nice look to it. Let's see, I don't think there's anything else really in bloom in here, but I can show you kind of some other things over here that I want you to be able to take a peek at. Look at the beautiful leaves on these irises. This is a variegated iris, and most of them have the white stripe, but this one has that beautiful golden color on it. And these are the ones that have kind of that beautiful fragrance as well. Now over here though, here's some of the other plants. Like look at the size of this monkshood. It's doing really, really great. But I also wanted to show you some of these Helleborus that we are wintering over. We winter these over on our own, and they just look fantastic. This is a nice early season bloom, also known as the Lenten Rose. Thought you'd want to see that. So overall, things are kind of under control for the most part. Just got to keep my caladiums watered. This is that room temperature water that I keep specifically for the caladiums. Everything else we got to keep watering, but making sure we don't overwater, because that's one of the biggest issues that we end up having this time of year with these young plants. Is overwatering can be really dangerous. Otherwise, I also have some questions coming in, people wanting to know what this kind of blonde stuff is here in these pots. And what this really is they're called rice hulls, and we use them a bit like a mulch. But they come in really handy in situations where, like, number one, if we need to kind of control the moisture a little bit, they're really good for that. But also, they're great at protecting plants that tend to be slow starters. and the soil's exposed. And when the soil's exposed, it kind of encourages fungus gnats. So by putting that down, it discourages any fungus gnats. So we have a lot less problem with those. So it kind of keeps the pests away as well as controlling the water. So anyway, we have a couple more back orders coming in. We do have more trucks coming, but not next week, just the back orders. So I think that's all I have to update you on right now, but I will keep you informed. Got a couple other videos in the pipeline with different tips and suggestions for you. So thanks for watching, everybody. I do appreciate your time spending with me. I hope you enjoy it a lot. Bye-bye.